Hello, everybody. Just a little disclaimer up top here. We shot this episode a while ago when we were still learning how to do remote shooting. So for those of you who are watching the video version, there are portions of this where our guest's video will unfortunately cut out, but you'll be able to see their lovely logo on screen when that does happen, just letting you know up top so you're not alarmed. But for those of you who are listening via audio, it should be relatively a smooth, similar experience to what you've had the past 20 or so episodes of this show. But yeah, that's all I'm saying. Anyways, please enjoy this episode of For Your Amusement with Coaster Studios on X2. Perhaps one of the most intense roller coasters in the world, and definitely the most intense roller coaster I've ever been on. Anyways, enjoy the show. Bye-bye. Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world-class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And for this episode's featured attraction, we enter the fifth dimension to discuss X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. And free-falling face down with us today is none other than the folks over at Coaster Studios, Taylor Bybee and Sarah Anderson. Hello, guys.
Hello.
What's going on?
Thanks for having us, guys.
Of course. Thank you guys for joining us in the Tiki Room.
Seems like you two have been kind of, as you put it, coasting through Europe. I think you coasted through Japan. You've been all over the world at this point. And I felt pretty accomplished this year when I got on my 100th coaster. I'm at 139 now. And then lo and behold, I see a video that you two put out where at least Taylor, you got on your 1,000th roller coaster.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was earlier this summer.
You achieved the highest level of nerddom.
Yeah.
Do you
Mega
guys
nerd.
also refer to your to them as credits? Because Byron refers to a coaster ride as a credit. Is that a thing in the coaster community?
It is a thing. Now, I mean, it depends on how loosely you want to use that term. I wouldn't look at a roller coaster and say that's a credit. I would still say that's a roller coaster. But we do have some friends that look at it and they're like, look at that credit over there. I'm like,
why?
guys.
They take it to the highest.
No, I would say Byron is. I would say you lean more towards that.
I know. I say that's a credit when it's a roller coaster that I wouldn't go on unless it was just to get it. Like if it's some little kiddie coaster or something.
Which
I'll
he
look
has
and
done.
well, that's a credit.
He's made me stand in line for some of the kiddie rides in Bugs Bunny Land over at Six Flags. So
oh, dude, there's 4 of them too.
Yeah, he's just trying to stack his numbers. So if you really adjusted his credits for actual coasters, what do you think you're at, Byron?
A coaster's a coaster.
Okay, well that's what you're gonna stick with.
If it runs on wheels and it's propelled by gravity, I say you count it.
What I did right there was I lobbed you a softball to protect your integrity.
I need all the help I can get to one day maybe get half of what Taylor and Sarah have.
Hey man,
on
I'm
their
just looking
resume.
out.
You can cheat a little.
I'm looking out for you. As your friend,
Okay.
I want you to have good standing in the coaster community, Byron. I was giving you the chance to preserve your integrity. I threw you a softball.
This
you
is
took
not
the ball.
This is not the show you
threw
come
it right
on
back
to
in
do
my
that.
face. I'm just saying. All right. Anyways, when we ask guests to come on to this show, we often ask them, what would you like to cover? And X2 was one of the things that you guys talked about. Is there a reason in particular that this ride came to mind?
Yes, it is very controversial among the two of us.
Yes, we do not agree on it, which is what makes it fun.
Oh.
Oh, excellent. Because there's a point in this show where that might come into play. So I'm looking forward to that a little bit.
I'm looking forward to it.
And for folks who don't know, Coaster Studios, they put out some of the best coaster content out there on the web. They, as Byron says, travel the world, going on coasters, reviewing them. And you guys also do some general theme park vlogging as well, right?
Yeah. It's definitely a variety channel. So we'll have things that are like vlogs. We'll do games. Sometimes we'll do more in-depth reviews. We'll do analysis videos, studio videos. We have, I don't even know, there's so many different types of videos we do.
Documentary shorts,
Yeah.
little
Exactly.
featurettes on stuff.
Depends on our mood.
It's a big variety. So we like it because people can watch the channel, and you might not be into every type of video we do, but that's okay. Hopefully something on there appeals to you.
No, for sure. Like I said, you guys, whoever's listening to this or watching this, go check them out. Byron was the one who actually put me on to you guys. You guys do a great job over there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Byron.
We appreciate it.
That makes you our favorite.
And then
now.
for any enthusiasts out there that really want to get into the weeds with this kind of stuff, Taylor and Sarah also have a documentary called "This Is How We Roll," that I believe is that on Vimeo? It's under
Yeah, it's vimeo.com/on-demand/This Is How We Roll movie, and it tells the story of Rocky Mountain Construction, which is one of the most prominent roller coaster manufacturing companies in the world. They've done some incredible attractions, and we debuted that film in 2021.
And it's like one of those kinds of films that, like, even if you're not like an enthusiast, you can enjoy, because it's like, while it is nerdy, it is not to the point that an average person doesn't know what the heck is going on. Like, it's actually just a really cool story of like the American dream.
That's the mark that we aspire to hit in this podcast, and I have to say, sometimes we don't hit it. So sometimes we get a little in the weeds over here. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some history, which we'll see if Byron hits that mark right now, because he told me.
And once again, feel free to step in whenever we botch it, or if you ever want to add anything on in the end. This is, a condensed history, so we could get this done in a timely manner. But here's our history package on X2. In 1953, Walt Disney and his Imagineers needed an amusement ride manufacturer to help design and build out some of the earliest attractions in what was soon to become Disneyland. Walt would look to the Aero Development Company, which was, at the time, a small machine shop located in Mountain View, California. Aero Development was founded by World War II veterans Ed Morgan, Carl Bacon, Bill Hardiman, and Angus Anderson, who were most known for, at the time, for manufacturing carousels for small local amusement locations, prior to being catapulted by Walt Disney into what we like to call the big leagues. The guys at Aero successfully built 6 of the Disneyland opening day attractions. This includes Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Snow White's Scary Adventures, Mad Tea Party, King Arthur's Carousel, Dumbo the Flying Elephant, and Casey Jr.'s Circus Train.
Did you know Walt actually was like not stoked about these boys when he first went there?
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Just off first impression, though, right?
No, off first impression. He went down there because they were supposed to make molds for the Mr. Toad ride, and he saw all the stuff in there, and he was like not pleased. So he walked out, and I think it was one of the Imagineers who was like, "Hey, we should still, give them a chance." And Walt was like, "Whatever. If you feel that." And then he went back, and then as a result, the prototype was made.
Damn, he must have had a real change of heart.
I did not know that.
Thank goodness for that one guy.
Yeah, that one guy. Yeah,
that one guy saved Aero.
A ripple effect that would probably, there's no X2 if that happens.
So in 1959, they teamed up with Imagineer Bob Gurr to create the world's first tubular steel roller coaster and Matterhorn bobsleds. Aero would also go on to manufacture the tracks for Disney's other legendary mountain coasters, Space and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, the Magic Kingdom's version being the last coaster that Aero would manufacture for the Walt Disney Company. This was due to various factors that spanned the 60s and 70s, such as Aero exchanging various owners, Walt Disney's death, Imagineering's growing capacity to develop attractions in-house, and most importantly, an increasing demand for amusement parks outside of Disney, including one that broke ground in 1969 just 60 miles up the 5 freeway from Disneyland. The soon-to-be Magic Mountain Park in Valencia, California, would contract Aero to build many of their opening day attractions, such as Gold Rusher, a family thrill mine train model coaster, a log flume, and a sky tower. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Aero would become the go-to roller coaster manufacturer for amusement parks in the USA. Notable works of Aero include 1975's Corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm, which was the first looping coaster of the modern era.
Wait, really? They made the first
looping coaster of the modern era, because I believe back in the 1800s there was something with an attempted vertical loop.
What do you mean an attempted?
Oh
vertical
yeah,
loop?
back in the day.
What the fuck
it
does
happened.
that mean? When you mean attempted, does that mean they failed and people like flew off the ride when they tried to go upside down?
I think the details are hazy. By all means,
Russian mountain slides, like
of course,
people did everything.
Of course.
So some action park style of play, going on.
Oh Jesus!
So we have to put it as the modern era.
That's cool. Good for nonce.
They also worked on 1981's The Bat at Kings Island, which introduced the first swinging suspended coaster model. and 1989's Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point, which was the world's first hyper coaster, which means a coaster that stands at 200 feet tall.
They named a coaster after the condom?
Fan.
They named a coaster after the condom?
You know, it's all about size when it comes to this.
Actually,
here we go.
Here's an interesting fact for you.
Oh, God.
This is not my discovery. This was a friend who told me. The condom came after the coaster.
I don't know anything about Magnum.
Think about that next time you're with someone, eh?
An XL 200, too long of a name.
Take whatever from that you may will.
It might be the dirtiest ride name ever.
Yeah. Never had to purchase it. Anyways.
1989's Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point would become the world's first hyper coaster, standing at 200 feet tall, and would become the instigator of what coaster enthusiasts like to call the Coaster Wars, which was a period of time when every amusement park was trying to build roller coasters in a marketing ploy to basically outdo the other.
Would you consider us in the theme park wars right now? I'm sure if we look back at this time like 10, 20 years from now, when it, starting with Harry Potter, then Star Wars, and then like between like the big mega theme parks of just building these immersive themed lands, I would say that we're probably.
I would agree.
Like that, right?
I'd say the divide has definitely dwindled.
And now Epic Universe. I mean, the thing is, any kind of war, whether it's these coaster wars or the theme park wars, the people who win are us because it's pretty sweet.
Oh, no.
I don't care who wins.
Competition is terrific in this community.
It's great.
And it's going to be interesting how things shake up now that Cedar Point and Six Flags have merged. And I'm wondering if that's going to provide extra cash flow for them to try and up their game, to not necessarily reach like the theming heights of what Universal and say Disney are, but to at least be competitive enough to maybe steal some of those regional markets.
We'll see.
Only time will tell.
I think people are caring more and more about theming, so I'm going to go with probably, but it's probably only going to get to like where Cedar Fair is now for Six Flags. I don't think it's going to go too much beyond that.
Yeah, but I mean, you mentioned like, are we in the theme park wars now? I'd say especially in Orlando, yes. I mean, like there's new stuff opening every single year, always new roller coasters coming.
Yeah,
it's like they're all trying to outdo each other with Epic coming.
Yeah, with Epic coming, like everybody else in Orlando is like, oh my gosh, how do we answer to this? And like, I know like SeaWorld has kind of abandoned theming, but now because of Epic, they're putting in a new roller coaster that's going to have like a whole dark road section and everything. And I'm like, bring it on. Like, I love theming.
That's
so I'm all for it.
That's the was it Empire of the Penguin? No, it's not called that, is it? It's the Penguin one, though,
Penguin
right?
Track.
Yeah,
Penguin
it's
Track.
replacing Empire of the Penguin.
Empire of the Penguin.
There was an attraction. No, because they had an attraction there, I think, that was
What?
called Empire of the Penguins, right? That was like a slow-moving dark ride.
This is not the penguin from Batman, right? This is like the penguin, the little tuxedo bird.
Yeah, like the cute, like the cute little guy.
Like the bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bird.
I don't mind Six Flags and Cedar Fair merging. It just means more Dippin' Dots. I fucking love Dippin' Dots. And they have those, I think, at both parks.
I'm with you on that.
I could eat Dippin' Dots for every meal. And I would probably die in 20 days. But, God, would I die happy. Oh, my God. I love them.
This is how we go 2 hours over on the
That's
episode.
true. Yeah. Get me off of this. Otherwise, I'll talk about how Dippin' Dots stick to your little teeth and your lips because they're so dry. Anyways, continue,
Aren't
Byron.
they literally little balls of dry ice, basically?
Yeah,
Like,
they
they're
put
the
them in
best.
like a cryo chamber. We talked about this in our other podcast, how they make these bad boys. It's a fascinating process.
I'm going to have to listen to that.
It's not a Dippin' Dots exclusive podcast. We just happen to talk about it.
It's getting warmer, and you know what that means. Finding the right temperature at night is gonna be tough. But did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. You hear us talking about Miracle Made sheets often, and why wouldn't we? Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, eco-friendly bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. Miracle sheets are also luxuriously comfortable, without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So quit throwing away all those precious hours in bed and go to trymiracle.com/FYA to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code FYA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA and use the code FYA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/FYA to treat yourself right meow. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Meanwhile, Magic Mountain was sold in 1979 to the amusement chain company Six Flags and renamed accordingly. The result is a roller coaster building frenzy that takes place over the next couple decades, including more works from Arrow such as Ninja, the first suspended swinging coaster on the West Coast in 1988, and Viper in 1990, a mega looping coaster with 7 inversions.
All of them hurt. Every single one of them hurts. That ride
Correct.
sucks.
Correct.
It's
a little foreshadowing here.
I don't think I've ever had CTE in my life, but I'm pretty sure if I had, it's from Viper. That thing is a head slapper. I don't know if, like, Viper, for the listeners at home, it's one of those things where it has the over-the-shoulder restraints, and these restraints are chunky, and this ride is so rough, so when you go on those loops, your head is just bouncing back and forth, just getting concussed at a theme park. It's not fun.
So quick anecdote on that subject. My first, I guess, big girl looping roller coaster was Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, which is very, I guess, similar to Viper. And it almost deterred me from ever riding a roller coaster ever again because it was so horrendous.
Did you have earrings on at the time? I always wondered that.
No, it didn't even matter. There was nothing, and it still was like the most painful thing. And thank God I wrote something else later that day, and I think converted myself into an enthusiast. But I almost wasn't. I almost wouldn't be here today because of Arrow. Sorry.
Based on that anecdote, it's no surprise that unfortunately for Arrow, their boiling hot streak was slow to a simmer by the mid-90s. By this time, the coasters they were putting out were feeling dated when compared to the coasters designed by new competitors such as Bollinger and Mabillard.
It's Mabillard.
Oh, is it Mabillard?
It's
Yeah.
Bollinger and Mabillard.
I just like calling it B&M, which we can't do for
You
people who
gotta
listen
say
to it the
that.
first. Bollinger and Mabillard.
Bollinger.
Oh, Bollinger.
Dude, you're fucking blowing it right
I
now.
I even typed it wrong. Bollinger and Mabillard.
You leave all
Mabillard.
Keep it up, dude. You're going to have to hand in your badge and gun.
By new competitors such as B&M, who had took the inside lane on Arrow's coasters by using computers to aid smoother track profiling in addition to their creative layouts that combine thrills with comfort. In December of 2000, Six Flags Magic Mountain announced a $30 million push to build 3 new coasters in 2001 and get their total to 15 in order to surpass Cedar Point for most roller coasters held by an amusement park in the world. At this time, Arrow was limping along as a company and its designers were using free time to cook up ways to stay relevant in the coaster game. Also at the time, working for Arrow was a soon-to-be legendary coaster designer by the name of Alan Schilke. That one's pronounced right?
That one is
You
correct.
nailed it.
I have no idea. I'm just sitting here and like, sounds good.
Inspired by the zipper carnival rides he'd ride when he was growing up, Schilke pitched an idea to Six Flags then CEO Gary Story that involved putting something like the zipper ride onto the track of a roller coaster. He actually did this at an airport because Gary Story did not have time to actually have like a legitimate meeting, so they caught him in the airport.
That sounds like an official at Six Flags. Taking theme park pitches for his rides while he's at the airport bar. Not to say that they aren't incredibly well themed, but yeah, that sounds about right.
Now, Schilke demonstrates this to Gary via a quick animation that he had stashed on a CD for over 3 years, and the concept sells. They even end up building like a 20-foot tall prototype that they showed the reps at Six Flags to demonstrate.
Do you know what they built it out of? What did they build it? Because there's always that goofy story that Imagineers tell about Soren, how like the guy used like
that was just a little model. This is actually like
it's only a model.
So this is like a 20-foot tall, like
You
foot
get
tall.
that? It's a Magatu from Zoolander.
in my imagination, they use Connects. That's what I'm picturing.
What was it was Tinker Toys that they used to build Soren over in California Adventure. So I imagine like this guy, but this was a legit model.
Yeah, this was like, apparently they were like, according to Schilke, they were like running around grabbing like cables, stuff from like departments, to like just everything on the fly to basically get it ready just in time for the Six Flags rep to arrive.
God, I would pay money to have that model.
And once they demonstrate it, the reps at Six Flags are impressed. But Gary Story doesn't just want Arrow to create this small-scaled prototype for Magic Mountain.
Yeah.
They demand something huge to really sell this idea of it becoming an extreme park. So they want this 200-foot drop on this thing. And so this ends up forcing Arrow into a situation where they have to bite off a lot more than they can chew. This presents a massive set of challenges for the team at Arrow. And the result is a multi-year delay due to the trials and tribulations of creating a new coaster model on a 200-foot scale, as well as Arrow going millions of dollars over budget, forcing them to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Wait a second. Why did that cause such an issue, though? Like, just making it taller made it that much more difficult? Was it like the amount of track and like materials, or was it just...
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of factors, and by all means, like, step in, but you gotta like imagine these are all like completely new ride vehicles. They're very heavy.
Yes.
They're running them on basically a track that they've been used to. And this was like a recurring theme for Arrow. And I think this was kind of part of their demise, just like in my opinion, that they were building much larger roller coasters on track that was like very similar, inspired to like, let's say their small mine train coasters.
But also to be clear here for the folks watching and listening to this, you had mentioned before that it was inspired by the Zipper. I just want to make clear, this coaster, the seats are on their own independent swivel. They move independently of the tracks. You are literally swiveling vertically. You are flipping up and around in your seat in a controlled fashion.
Forward and backwards. And I think the way they actually worked on it was, because nowadays you have like roller coasters that, you know, they could have controlled like spins, which X actually did have. It's almost like, I think it's a small track within like the main track's
There's four
structure.
rails, yeah.
X is a very unusual coaster because it has 4 rails. The 2 road rails that you'll find on most coasters that the train rolls over. And it's got a second set of seat rotation rails that vary in distance between the road rails and themselves. And as that distance varies, it drives a rack gear which causes the seats to rotate either in the forward or backward direction.
And the wheels that run along that, based on whether it's like, you know, cresting up or down, dictates whether it's going to spin forward or backwards. It's really interesting.
Did you guys want to jump in?
Yeah,
about why
that's pretty spot on.
Oh, great. Awesome. Nailed it.
I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Yeah. With like, just think about also like roller coasters are seldomly being built as huge because of the sheer cost of materials. And so like, even back then, that's still something that you have to keep in mind, even with inflation, like not being what it is today. So yeah, you just factor in like a lot of that money is going into R&D, but then also the actual like manufacturing process. And once you do that, there's of course going to be problems along the way.
Well, that, and you were talking about like, oh, does it really cost that much more to like make it bigger? And I think, you know, if they're like, okay, actually, can you make it like double the size? They have to kind of, I don't want to say start over with the engineering, but you have to like kind of backtrack because the G forces are going to be totally different. Like the sensation is going to be very different. And like, I feel like that's a whole new set of calculations that need to get done. And, you know, time is money. You got to pay these people to sit on the clock and figure all this stuff out. And then, you know, I think it was just very ambitious and kind of drove them into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was Arrow at the time was in a position where they could not say no. This was like a last-ditch effort in a way.
Well, we
to stay relevant.
Their service. If they lost their jobs, but we got a roller coaster. Feels selfish to say. But
it kind of seems like kind of like a recurring trend that because you know, you guys mentioned the documentary that we did. Alan Schilke obviously went on to be part of RMC, which I don't know if you guys are planning on touching on that later, but their stories of how they've sold roller coasters are very similar about how they sketch something out on a napkin on a plane or at a bar or whatever, and then they like pitch it to a park before they've even created anything that even kind of resembles a prototype. And they're like, yeah, you want to come check it out? And then they're like, shit, we have to actually do this now. And they're scrambling to put together a piece of track. And they're like, I don't know, like, can we do this? And you're like, I don't know, we've already signed the contract.
There's something unsettling about someone making the initial designs of something I'm strapping myself into on a napkin and then scrambling to get it together. I actually wonder if this would make a good movie, like the story of Arrow, because I could see like a sequence where they're like writing equations on like a window, like in Social Network, scrambling to get this together to save the company. I don't know if people would watch it, but then again, they make movies about like, Air was just made about how they made the first like Jordan. I don't know. Yeah. I think I would watch this movie, but
I would watch it.
And there's way more coaster enthusiasts than sneakerheads out there, I'm sure. So
yeah, you're probably right.
Hell yeah.
There are dozens of us.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. X2, the ride we're talking about today, does it all. Flips and drops and twists and turns. And just like X2, Squarespace, well, does it all for you. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. So start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up, tailored to your brand or business and optimized for every device. And staying up to date on the latest in styles can be difficult, but Squarespace has you covered and they update these themes and templates often, so you can be sure that your website always has the latest look, effects, and tech. With Fluid Engine, the next generation website editor from Squarespace, it's never been easier for anyone to unlock unbreakable creativity. Choose your website starting point and customize every design detail with reimagined drag and drop technology for desktop or mobile. Stretch your imagination online with Fluid Engine included in any new Squarespace site. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated, optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. Starting a business? Sell exclusive content on your site or sell files your customers can download like PDFs, music, or ebooks. Or easily manage your clients and invoices, from vetting leads to receiving payment via invoices in one streamlined, customizable workflow. Or maybe you're a content creator. Upload video content, organize your video library, and showcase your content on beautiful video pages. Whatever your needs, Squarespace is there to work for you. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/FYA to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
So to wrap this up, Aerodynamics, the company that revolutionized the coaster world with Matterhorn in 1959 and built game-changing attraction after game-changing attraction in the decades to follow, would meet its end at the hands of their final game-changing effort, X.
Experience the extreme. Only at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now, the Extreme Park.
Which officially opens on January 12th of 2002. X became the world's first fourth dimension coaster, which featured seats that performed both forward and backwards flips while the train traverses its own separate elements on the track. Aero would have to sell their assets to Sensei Technologies, known as SNS, which is now the spiritual successor.
Bow to your Sensei! Bow to your sense. You remember that from Napoleon Dynamite? Rex Kwon.
That's exactly how it went in the room when they sold their assets.
My favorite part about that scene was like, I'm gonna break the wrist, walk away, break the wrist. It slaps. Anyways, continue. We're not here to talk about Napoleon Dynamite. Sorry.
SNS, which is now the spiritual successor in regards to carrying out Aero's legacy, and to this day, only 2 other fourth dimension models of this kind exist via SNS, one in Japan and one in China. Although there's many of SNS free spin models that don't necessarily meet this scale, but
yeah, not at all the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. It's a really sad story because, like you said, Aero had been such a pioneer in the theme park world forever. They made groundbreaking attraction after groundbreaking attraction. Some classics. It's kind of like, the only way I could think about it and analogize it is that a word? Analogize it? No, I just made it one.
It is now.
It's kind of like when you have like a sporting figure. Like I used to be a big Kobe Bryant fan, and watching someone play on the court way past their prime is so sad. I just remember that like last season when we had zombie Kobe just launching up threes.
What are you talking about? He put up 60 in his final game.
But that's what I'm saying. This is kind of like Kobe in that he was a great player and then, got old and was, out there playing when he shouldn't have been. And then in the last game, he scored 60 points. This kind of feels like that.
Arrow's swan song for sure.
That they left us with one last banger. And I think that's a nice thing. I'm sad they're gone.
And just for sake of time, I also left out like a major subplot in the story of Arrow that involved Vekoma. But
who the hell is Vekoma?
That exists for any big coaster heads out there that want to look into it. Basically, long story short, when Arrow was tasked with all these projects, they inadvertently created a monster in Vekoma by giving them their track design to basically help them build roller coasters in Europe. And lo and behold, now Vekoma is the main manufacturer for Disney roller coasters.
Oh, so that's a good thing then, right? Their legacy is kind of continued.
Well, it was good for Vekoma. I mean, I don't know.
Was like, sweet, I love Arrow.
I think people are back. The nuances that go into this subplot, you just don't. There's so many details, and it's like.
So they stole their track. They like social networked them.
I think like Arrow homers, like
basically,
like the social network.
They turned them into the Winklevi.
Yeah, I think people go back and forth on whether or not they stole, but then like on the contrary, like
this should be a movie.
Vekoma also gave Arrow a lot of business by still using their trains for a while, and I don't know. It's kind of a gray area. There's different opinions.
Is Disney going to come after you for saying this? Are you going to get whacked by the mouse?
Vekoma's not Disney. It's just a.
Well, they are like an appendage.
I'm waiting for like by the end of this. He's gonna come in and like punch him in the face.
Oh shit! No, here they come.
You're gonna get hit with a silenced pistol.
Mickey, no. In 2007, Magic Mountain announced a major refurb to X, which had been plagued with various malfunctions over its opening years.
Heavy trains.
So on May 24th, 2008, X reopens as X2, which is the title of the ride that we are covering today.
Come, my friends, behold the thunder of X2.
Which includes a new color scheme. It went from this interesting looking purple and yellow scheme to a red and gray color scheme. They add music, they add fire effects that sometimes work, I guess.
I have never ever seen those. I just want to point that out. I've ridden that ride plenty of times. No fire, no music, nada.
It's got problems.
I gotta say, I have a pretty great track record when it comes to the fireballs. Almost every time I've gotten on this, they work.
You know what? Fuck you, because that is true. The only time I've ever gotten the fire effect was with you on Halloween.
And I was like, this happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it happens all like,
Can I ride with you?
You can.
Please?
That sounds great.
Fly on over to LA.
If you want to feel
I'm
the
calling
fire.
literally next time.
I'm like El
Next
Pollo
time we're
Loco
in
over
California.
here. Feed the flames, baby. You guys can come over and we'll feel the fireball. It's a big ass fireball too.
Yeah, you can feel the heat while on the coaster. It's crazy.
It's incredible. And it comes out of nowhere. Every time I check my eyebrows to see if they're still on my face, because it really is intense. But I actually prefer the old paint scheme, to be honest.
You know, it's really weird.
I'm gonna have a fun fact about
you. I guess.
We'll talk about it later. How about that? So this new paint scheme and these new effects, they're put together in 2008 for X2, and they complement the new and lighter trains, which greatly reduce downtime. They also change up the station loading to accommodate 3 trains, but although there's no way in hell they do that anymore.
It upped the capacity by 50%.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah, when it reopened, but I'd be surprised if they run more than 1 train now. I've definitely never seen it with 3. I rarely see it with 2. But that concludes our history of X2.
Well done.
Bravo. I loved it.
Did we miss anything big there that we
I don't think so. No, you hit pretty much all the main things that came into my mind.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. You did it, Byron.
Wow.
you presented your presentation to the teachers. They loved it. And that's great.
A+. My only criticism was your pronunciation of B&M, but we worked on it.
I don't think I've ever gotten that right. I think.
Then you continued that streak today.
Just don't send me to Switzerland, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know if you don't. You're not gonna get barred from the from Switzerland just because you
The
did
government's like, no way.
That's the test to get in.
I've actually been to Switzerland. I can't imagine how many things I pronounced wrong there on my trip.
Well, everyone makes
You're
mistakes.
running into someone from B&M there in the entire country is like next to none.
Anyways, let's move on to some fun facts. But before we do that, let's take some time to thank our sponsors.
Today we're sponsored by Microdose Gummies, an absolute for your amusement favorite. X2 calls itself a 4D coaster, but you know what I think the fourth dimension is? The chill zone. And there is no better way to get there than Microdose Gummies. Microdose Gummies deliver perfect entry-level doses of THC that help you feel just the right amount of good. I love how helpful these gummies are. Half a Microdose gummy can be the perfect thing you need to just get in that zone and get stuff done. Oh, and not to speak for him, but I'm speaking for him, right, Meow. Ryan is a big proponent of how much they help him relax and, when the time is right, fall asleep. For my money, Microdose gummies are perfect for so many situations. You just have to have some on hand for whatever the need might be. Get 30% off your first order plus free shipping today at microdose.com. Promo code FYA. It's available nationwide. That's microdose.com. Promo code FYA for 30% off and free shipping. Microdose.com. Promo code FYA.
And we are back. It's time for some fun facts. Now, as a warning, folks, and by folks I mean Taylor and Sarah, because the people who listen to this already know this, these are fun facts. That means I've read some of these on the internet. Iffy on one of them, I will say so, but, we're just here to vibe. The ride length is 1 minute and 48 seconds, with 60 of that being the lift hill, with a top speed of 76 miles per hour, a capacity of 1,600 riders per hour, and a reported cost of $45 million initially as X, with an additional $10 million later to retheme it into X2. It's cool. What do you think of the name? Do you like X2, other than the fact that it's a kick-ass X-Men movie?
It's very creative.
I like it. I think it's fun.
It's about as creative as their queue.
The queue is pretty rough. We'll get into that later. The ride sports a 3,610-foot layout and features an absolutely terrifying 200-foot face-first drop, though some sites say that it's 215 feet. I don't really know why, because the Six Flags site itself says 200. I'm not sure about that.
I can see how people are misled, because I think the height of the coaster is actually under 200 feet when it hits the top of the chain lift, and then it essentially drops you into a ditch.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like Batman.
I'm on the roller coaster database, which if you've never used that, it's basically the nerd Bible. And it says that the drop is 215 feet.
And I'd sooner believe RCDB than the Six Flags website, just saying.
Correct.
That's crazy, though, because it's the entire job of the Six Flags website to make things seem as crazy as possible, and they're selling themselves short. They cut off 15 feet. That's at least a story. I don't know what. They got to get on that. We might be doing them a favor. Speaking of doing them favors, the attraction is sponsored by Twix. I don't know why I thought that was so funny. I've just never seen a roller coaster being
Twix, right, Twix.
Brought to you by Twix.
What's with you and Twix?
I fucking love Twix, dude. I think Twix is low-key the best candy bar, in my opinion.
What?
It's good, but it ain't that good.
I think it's pretty good. Matt, our producer, shaking his head. No, wait, shaking.
No, I'm being nice. It's a good candy bar.
What? All right, I didn't think this was gonna draw any ire from the crowd here. I thought it was pretty unanimous that Twix rules.
That's also what you link your social handle to. You don't, because it's Twitter and X.
That's right. I do call it X now. I call it Twix because I refuse to call it X, and I don't want to call it Twitter. So Twix.
Twix is funny. That's funny,
and it's a delicious candy bar. But I do think it's hilarious that this ride is sponsored by Twix. Are there any other roller coasters that are sponsored by something at Six Flags?
I'm sure there's plenty. They just probably change
There's
it.
a roller coaster, also Six Flags, is also sponsored by Twix.
Fuck yeah. It's because Twix is extreme. It's for the extreme candy fans.
Six Flags will go as far as to paint the ads onto their roller coasters. I remember that on Goliath last time I went for some reason.
Well, you're never going to have to guess what this ride is sponsored by, because Twix is everywhere in the queue of this ride, which is strange. They should just call this Twix the ride. Oh, I get why it's Twix, because the X at the end. Of course. That makes sense, right?
Nailed it.
Wow.
The 4D on this ride refers to the seats themselves, which operate on a vertical swivel, we've talked about this, that move independently from the track orientation and are able to fully rotate 360 degrees in a controlled spin, hence another dimension. It accomplishes this by having 4 rails, 2 of which are the normal ride rails, and the other 2 which control the spin. And now I'm going to try and explain this, and I'm going to fail. The seat rotation rails bend up and down slightly, pushing the rack gear up and down, which in turn rotates the seats. Look, that's what I read. I'm not a roller coaster designer.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
That's not bad.
Now, why 5D? You asked that at the beginning. What's the 5th dimension?
The fire, the music.
Now, people online have speculated that this refers to the onboard audio, which is rare for non-Disney or Universal roller coasters, or the giant fireball effect that greets riders at one point on the ride. Or perhaps because after getting off this ride, you feel briefly like you've elevated to another level of consciousness, aka nausea for those who are weak. Because I do see a lot of people getting sick after this ride, because it is a lot to be going on loops and flipping around. Yes, so it's kind of a weak little transition into saying why it's the 5th dimension. This is just clearly a marketing ploy. But you know what? I will say, when the fire works, it's substantial. It's pretty sweet.
I like how you mentioned that onboard audio is there outside of Disney and Universal, because I'm like, it's apparently rare at Six Flags Magic Mountain too.
It's
I've never heard it. I've never heard it.
It's also always worked for me on this ride.
It's Metallica on the chain lift, right?
Oh, we'll get into that in the good.
It's so good. Is everybody in?
Oh, dude.
The ceremony's about to begin.
Oh, dude, that's my favorite thing. I say that all the time.
It's so good.
It fucking rips.
I quote it also all the time.
And no one knows what I'm talking about. I can't believe it. Though this is the first 4D roller coaster in the world, the second was Egenika,
right?
Egenika. I should know how to say that. I'm Japanese. But that's in Japan, and that's a taller, faster, and longer version of X2, and supposedly demonic as hell, and improves upon the weaknesses of X2 as well. In fact, when X rethemed to X2, it mimicked the paint job of Egenika, I believe, as well. Have you did a video on it.
Yeah, it's no longer red like how X2 was. It's now like all black, and it's like really, really cool looking. It's totally menacing. Yeah, I wrote it in 2019, and it is one of the best roller coasters I've ever ridden. So out of the 1,070 I'm at, it's top 3. For me, deciding on number 1 is really, really hard, but I can confidently say it's at least top 3.
So my plan, and I'm not going to say specifically when, on the off chance that any of our fans are listening to this, I do plan to ride Egenika. It is probably one of my most anticipated roller coaster rides in the world.
Yeah, I'm going to Japan soon with my wife, and I'm going to try and convince her get over there. It's only an hour drive away from Tokyo. I just looked at it today.
Are you going to do Universal there?
No.
No.
I can't get her to go there.
Yeah.
I'm already getting her to go to Tokyo Disney Sea and Tokyo Disneyland. This is going to be a hard sell to get her to go on this.
Taylor, you did Universal Japan, right?
Yeah, I did a ton of parks in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to say Flying Dinosaur's pretty up there for me.
Oh, dude, that sounds sick.
But I need to go back for
very, very intense.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for Flying Dinosaur.
No, yeah.
I thought, I'm like, it's Universal. It's not like
I thought it was like the roller coaster that's in Islands of Adventure, the one that just kind of is like the kiddie roller coaster. And then Byron was like, no. It's much more Velocicoaster than it is.
It's
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Velocicoaster is actually tame for
that's crazy
compared to Flying Dinosaur. But
Flying Dinosaur is really, really intense.
Oh fuck, I can't wait to get on it. One day, maybe Byron and I will just go to Japan.
Love it. Yeah, bye, Mari. I'm gonna.
I know Byron and I will go on our own Japan trip.
Coasters.
Also, Coaster Force mentions that 4D coasters are also referred to as these names. I want to know if these are correct: Zack Spin, Free Spin, Ball Coaster. Which is funny because I find the name Free Ball Coaster to be pretty apt for what the X2 experience is like. This is like a ride that is completely unhinged. I love it. Have you heard those names by the before? Zack Spin, Free Spin, Ball Coaster?
Yes, but those are referring to different types of 4D. So,
gotcha.
Like the type of roller coaster the X2 is not a Zack Spin. That is a very different type of ride. It's actually more similar to the 4D Free Spin that S&S does, except Intamin did the Zack Spin first, but it was nowhere near executed as well.
Did you ever ride
Green Lantern?
Green Lantern.
The Green Lantern?
Yeah.
That ride sucks.
Shit.
I never did Green Lantern.
It's awful. It's a huge wait for a bad ride.
I heard it's not friendly to your friends down south.
No, I've heard that as well. That place
Not pleasant.
is not great. No, it's basically Planned Parenthood on wheels. Anyways, the ride also features 2 Raven turns, which are half loops that change into drops. And the Six Flags website describes these Raven turns as, quote, rare, ultra rare half loops that change their minds midway and become sheer drops. That's how Six Flags describes them. Would you guys agree with that?
I mean, I guess not really, but I mean, I kind of see what they're getting at, but I don't really agree. I wouldn't describe it that way.
When you guys, and by you guys, I'm talking to Byron and Coaster Studios over here, because you guys are true coaster heads. I love roller coasters. I know some of the history, but I'm not what I would consider a coaster head. When you ride a roller coaster for the first time, are you clocking the elements as they're happening? Like, are you like, oh, that was a sick Raven turn? Or are you like that's like a fly to lie? Are you doing that?
I am going to say for myself personally, I don't think in elements. I feel like when I'm looking at them from off the ride, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm looking at. But I'm on the ride, especially my first time. I'm not like, oh my God, that Raven truss dive was so fucking cool. Like, while I'm on it, it's like after, I guess.
So, I do think of it as...
I told you, like, the highest degree of nerdiness.
Yeah, so...
He's, like, hyper-analyzing every
yeah, so, like, as we're about to go through the stall, I'm like, here comes the stall. And, like, here's the outer bank. Yeah.
That's actually kind of like me when I watch content. Like, I see the editing, or if I'm watching, like, a movie, I'll, like, notice, like, the filmmaking or the acting. Like, it's kind of hard to turn that part of my brain off, which is unfortunate, but I'm glad that I could ride coasters just blissed out, because I'm not thinking about that kind of stuff. Byron, I imagine you are, because I know you're thinking of airtime and G's and all that stuff.
It depends on the coaster. Like, for example, my first time on X2, you're just so disoriented after, the beginning of the ride that you're kind of just taken aback, and then you're just going with it. So, like, I think if I'm, like, following a coaster, like its construction and stuff like that, then you're anticipating elements. But a lot of times I like going in blind. And for especially the more intense roller coasters, I don't really think about it on the first ride.
Well, that's good.
I'm more with you. And I ironically tend to avoid watching any kind of POV videos or reviews or anything about a roller coaster, which I'm saying it's ironic because I literally do that for a living. Like, I produce that very content, but I won't watch anyone else's. If I'm like, I know I'm going to get on this. So, like, when I did X2, like, I had obviously seen it, but I didn't want to really hear too much about it. So, like, when I first wrote it, I'm trying to just purely enjoy the experience. So I'm more, like, on your wavelength there than his. He hyper-researches everything.
I don't watch any ride POVs before I get on them, just because I don't want to have any spoilers. And that goes for any type of ride. Because unless I know there's zero chance I will ever get on this. Like, I remember recently I was on YouTube, and there was, like, some ride in Germany where it was, like, I think it was, like, an alien boat ride or something like that. It was like a great movie ride.
That's Movie Park Germany.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, there's zero chance I'm ever going to this park. I'll watch this and experience it vicariously through someone's GoPro.
I'm gonna laugh when you end up going.
We'll see. I won't remember it. Byron already mentioned this. Aerodynamics built this ride. They're no longer with us. So let's get an F in the chat and pour one out if you're old school for Aero. Thank you for your service to Coaster Nation. A very sad day. Here's another weird fun fact. I don't know why this was listed on the internet, but I had to put it in. On February 8th, 2003, Super Bowl MVP Dexter Jackson took a ride on X as part of a victory celebration as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. And everyone else is like, I'm going to Disneyland. And this guy's like, I'm getting on X2 and eating some Dippin' Dots. And we respect him for that. And last fun fact here, according to the Golden Ticket Awards, which is something put on by Amusement Today, which is a magazine, X2 has been a top 20 steel roller coaster in the world 12 of the past 21 years, and a top 30 steel roller coaster 7 of the past 21 years. So, I don't know how many steel roller coasters there are in the world, but that feels substantial to me. Have you guys ever heard of the Golden Ticket Awards?
The people who do them.
And we vote in them.
We voted, yeah. We're friends with the people at Amusement Today. We've been to their office and everything.
That's amazing. So, like, the voting process, they just send out ballots to people that are big in the community, essentially?
Yeah, it's like an application process kind of thing. Like, although, actually, I think It's sometimes invitation only. It's a lot of the people who've been voting in the Golden Ticket Awards have been voting in it for a long time.
So the same things win over and over and over again because of that.
Millennium Force.
Correct.
Yeah. So like the Golden Ticket Awards, while being great in many ways, they do receive a lot of criticism for their accuracy when it comes to like rankings and roller coasters, because sometimes some rides will crack the top that do not deserve it. And they are very biased towards the US. So if you're a roller coaster in another country, you pretty much have zero chance of making it in like the top 5 or top 10.
That sucks.
Now, are you insinuating that you two shoehorned Phoenix at Knoebels to become the best wooden roller coaster in the world?
She's never ridden it, and I don't really like Phoenix. It's the most overrated ride on the planet.
I went on it this summer.
Where is that?
It's in Knoebels. It's like a little it's so hard to describe. Basically,
Follow-up question, where's Knoebels?
It's in Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Gettysburg.
Where?
It's not really known for anything.
It's in Pennsylvania, though.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere.
It's like tucked in the mountains. There's no admission ticket. There's like just barbecues out front. Like just the community comes and you just walk in like it's a park, but then you just buy ticket booklets. It's really charming. It's really interesting.
Did you say Gettysburg?
Lysburg.
Oh, okay. I was like, Gettysburg. Jesus Christ. That's crazy. That being said, that is my last fun fact.
Those were very fun.
Oh, thank you. I thought they were quite fun as well, too, especially the Twix part. And Dexter Jackson. I don't even know who that is. I mean, I'm a football fan, and that was before I started watching the NFL, but we don't have to get into that.
More facts, more fun, right?
Six Flags, more fun!
But let's move on to current reputation. But before we do that, let's take another second to thank our sponsors. And we are back. Let's move on to current reputation. Let's discuss how popular the attraction is today. What are the average wait times? Where does it fit within the theme park landscape? And how do people generally feel about this ride? And we're going to toss it over to Byron now.
Well, they feel things all right.
I'm sure this is a very polarizing ride.
They feel positive things. They feel negative things. But let's go to all-time average wait time, 45 minutes.
That's low. That feels low to me.
To a certain extent, you got to keep in mind, like, this is like, Disney and Universal have done a really good job of like spreading their crowds out throughout like weekends with their like new pricing models. There's not really off seasons there. Whereas with Six Flags Magic Mountain, you're like true. Weekdays, you're going to see the crowds plummet. So 45 is honestly, I think still a pretty good average wait time. And I think really what's carrying the weight though is the weekends where it is much higher on average than 45 minutes because it's longest recorded wait time.
Wait, let me guess. I want to take some guesses.
Let's go around the horn here. Let's start with Sarah and Taylor.
Do you guys have any guesses for what the highest recorded wait time for X2 has been?
5 hours.
Wait, are we doing this like
Price is Right rules? You go over, you lose.
5 hours and 1 minute.
Oh man, that's nasty.
No,
that's a nasty thing to do.
No. Okay, fine. 5.5. 5.5.
I'm going 6. I think it's 6. I've seen this line be ungodly before.
All right. Everyone's over, according to ThrillData.com.
That's ridiculous. There's no way.
The highest recorded wait time is 240 minutes, which would be 4 hours.
That's still pretty. I would not be happy.
Mm-hmm. Anecdotally, I think I've seen this be 2 hours often.
Yes, and sometimes 3.
So perhaps maybe over 3 hours is like kind of the balking point for people.
They need a single rider line.
But they do have their, what is it called, fast lane?
Yeah, the flash pass.
I'm actually curious, because you guys probably have your finger on the pulse more so than anybody. How do people generally feel about this ride today, in your opinion? And you guys did a video on this, and I imagine you got a lot of people in the comments that had opinions about this.
Yeah, so you actually picked really good people to talk about this ride for the podcast because Taylor and I do not agree at all about X2. It's actually one of the few roller coasters on the planet that we both ridden that we disagree on. So I am in the boat of I am not a huge fan. Taylor is in the boat of he is a huge fan. However, when Taylor first rode X2, he was more in my boat, right?
Yeah, so I first rode X2 summer 2016, and due to it being down a large part of my visit, I was only able to get one ride on it. And honestly, I think I probably would have kept it at that one ride, like even if it hadn't been down, because like my one experience on it wasn't super pleasant. It wasn't an outside seat though, which, if you've ridden X2, you know that the inside seats are much better.
Oh, I did not know that. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the inside seats are smoother. So I was riding with someone who didn't like riding on the outside seats, and so they said, "Can I take the inside seat?" So I was like, "Okay, I'll take an outside seat," and I didn't really like it, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm good. I'm gonna do other stuff now."
So I want to explain myself here because I definitely been. I guess people have definitely disagreed with me about my opinions about X2, but like you said, it's a very polarizing roller coaster. I love Arrow. Do not get me wrong. I love Arrow. I love a lot of their rides. I love what they did for the amusement industry. However, I think that any coaster that essentially needs a how-to guide on how to ride comfortably without injuring yourself cannot be called a world-class attraction. That's my feeling on it because when I first rode X2, this was the briefing I got. Okay, half the seats on this ride are absolute shit. You're going to get hurt. Sit on the inside. Fine. So you have to sit on an inside seat. When I tell you when, you need to hold on to the thing that your seats and brace yourself. Otherwise, you will get hurt. And I'm like, does the average person know this information? No, they do not. So to me, if I have to know all of this insider BS to not get hurt, which I did, and I will tell that story later, I don't know that I can say it is one of the best coasters in the world if only half the seats are even bearable. That's my feeling.
And that is valid. I will.
Mic drop.
Which is interesting because we have friends who worship the outside seats on X2.
Because they love pain. They're like, whatever the word is.
they're like, I only want to ride on the outside seat, which is great. They are great riding buddies because they only want to ride on the outside seat and I only want to ride on the inside seat. So that actually works out very well. But no, inside seat I think is great. It is also more aggressive towards the back of the train. I think depending on what level of X2 you're looking for, the front might be more comfortable than the back. But I just love it because I think that it is an out of this world bananas sensation that you literally can't get anywhere else in North America. And I think that is worth something, especially considering like that was a prototype. It was a first of its kind. And the fact that they came up with that for their first one is pretty unbelievable. But yes, the other two that SNS did following that are definitely better. I haven't done the one in China, but I have a friend who has, and it's like his number one. And then I mentioned the one in Japan might be my number one. And so I can't ride that one all the time, but X2 is what I have to, get myself through in order to, remind myself of what the one in Japan is like, then I will take it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've been on this ride quite a few times, and I did not know that the outside versus the inside seat had any difference, and I've never really even like felt like I got even a little hurt on this ride like Viper. So like I've just always been like getting off of it like dilly. That was an incredible ride. So I am surprised to hear that there is a way to do this. Did you know any of this, Byron?
Yeah, I know about the outside inside seat sort of thing. I mean,
That's just you know what's up.
And to describe this to non-enthusiasts, as we like to call them sometimes, X2 has 7 rows of 4, so a total of 28 passengers, and each row has 2 seats that hang on the outside of the left side of the track, and then 2 seats that hang on the outside of the right side of the track, almost kind of like it looks like a wing formation. And basically, so you have like, it's basically divided in 2 parts per row, and each part is able to flip. So I try and be a team player when I go on this ride. I usually sit on the outside because usually I'm going with someone who's either never been on the ride or doesn't like the outside. And to me, it's like, I don't think for me, I could deal with it. I know it's a bit rougher.
I appreciate
the
that,
inside.
man. Thanks, dude. So you'll take the outside next time?
Every time, dude.
Did you take the outside when we went on this
Yes,
last?
I did. Yeah,
I don't even recall that.
I didn't tell you, but I didn't tell you why. But
you could have told me the outside is the better seat.
I was being a good friend,
and I would have been like, "Hell yeah, dude! Thanks for giving me this outside seat," and I would have accepted it and not felt any different. But when I go on this with my wife in a week or two, because we're gonna go to Six Flags soon, I'll have her sit in the inside.
It's probably the right choice.
Definitely do that.
Because I want to go hog wild on this thing. I want it to break every bone in my body. What was your first impression of this, Byron? Because I never asked you this.
Because it's funny, because I was a coaster enthusiast as a kid. However, I was more fascinated with how they were like built and kind of the stats and stuff like that. But I was actually afraid of riding them.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
And I'd been at this point, like it was the early 2000s. I'd been on most of the coasters that were at Magic Mountain at the time. However, X at the time was really just looming over me at the front of the park. And the first time I had been to that park when X was open, the line was like over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So I kind of had too bad. Like, but internally I was like, whew.
Yeah, thank God.
I was like, I was actually too afraid to go on it. And I just used that as the excuse. The next time I went though was on a weekday and I was with my cousin. There was just walk-ons for every ride. And I wasn't going to pull oh no, I'm too afraid to go on it. So I basically had to face my fears. And for first, it was probably the most scared I've ever been on a roller coaster, because once again, this is like before I was like really following track layouts. I didn't know what the elements were going to be. The thing I was scared about the most was the flipping element, especially since I kind of grew up with motion sickness. Like airtime, love it. Inversions, not so much. So I was more nervous about the somersaulting than anything. And to my surprise, this thing just puts you face down and drops you 200 feet and then has the audacity to flip you forward at the bottom of it. And I will never forget that gut punch I felt at the bottom of that 215-foot drop.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience. But I do remember when we did hit the brake run, it was just like one of those feelings like you could go on any coaster in the world. And that was a terrific feeling.
I have to say, this is still the only ride that I get butterflies and a little fear is inside me when I stand in line for it, especially when you get to the load zone. And we'll talk
Absolutely.
about it. It's weird because I don't get scared by scary movies anymore. But every now and then there's a scary movie that really gets me. And it's like I'm all of a sudden a kid again. And this ride gets me back into that childlike state. And it's also scary to look at. Like when you're driving to Six Flags, when you enter the parking lot, the first ride you see is X2. And when the fire's working, you could see the fireball. And I remember when I first approached this thing, I've never been scared of rides in my entire life. Even as a kid, I used to cry when I couldn't get on rides because I was too, like if I was like 5 or 6 and I couldn't get on like the bigger roller coasters, I'd be like, "No, that's bullshit," is what I'd say. And I was just waiting for the day when I could get on these rides. This was the first ride where I was a little unsure about it, but I still felt pretty confident, even in the load zone. And when I got on the ride, and the setup is so scary because when you're going up that lift hill, it gives you such a great view of Magic Mountain. I still was feeling like, okay, I've been on roller coasters. This isn't that big of a deal. And I just wasn't prepared. I did not know the seats flipped. I did not know that. So
that must have been a surprise.
when I went down that first drop and my seat moved, I was like, what the hell? And I legitimately thought the coaster had broke and I was about to die. So I was screaming literally for my life because I thought I was like, this is how it ends. I'm going to die at Six Flags. What a horrible, horrible way to go. Not even at Disneyland. And I just remember, like Byron said, when you fall, first off, when you fall and you're face down, that was already weird. And then when you do a front flip in your seat while you're on a roller coaster, from that point on, I had no idea what was going on. And when the ride stopped, I had to catch my breath. And I remember just thinking, this is the greatest roller coaster on earth. And I wanted to get on it again. But even still, it still scares me. Even more funny, the first time I got on this ride, I was with my friend Daniel Tucker and my other friend Darnell. And my friend Daniel, we had convinced him to get on this ride because he was scared of roller coasters. And to this, I have to say he's kind of a, no offense, Daniel, you're kind of a dummy. Because when we were in line, he was like, this is not that bad, right? Like, you don't go on loops or upside down. And we were like, no, you don't do any of that. That's fine. You could see the ride from the line. You're watching it go upside down. So I don't know what he was looking at. It was also like a 2-hour line. Maybe he was just trying to get into kind of like some sort of strange fugue state so that he could get on this roller coaster. And I do remember we strapped ourselves in, and as we were going up the hill, Darnell turned over to him and was like, just want to let you know, this is the most intense ride in this entire park, and it does go upside down. And I just remember him kicking and screaming on the ride as we were going up the lift hill, trying to get off. And it was too late. It was one of the most cruel things I had ever seen. I was laughing my ass off. And then I, too, also got kind of wrecked by it. So it is kind of like a weird mountain to climb for a lot of people.
Was Tucker in an outside seat?
I can't remember if he was in an outside seat.
I hope he was.
But when you're a kid, you also look at rides as scary things, like as things to scale, like mountains to climb. And now as an adult, I don't really look at rides like that anymore. And this is kind of a reminder of a bygone era in my mind when rides could be truly thrilling to the point that they would scare me. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, I actually want to agree with you on that one. As something that I really do appreciate about the ride is that, like, as a roller coaster enthusiast and someone who's ridden, I don't know, probably like 600 or 700 roller coasters at this point, I don't really feel fear anymore. Like, and half the time I don't even really get like my adrenaline going. Like, I can sit and have a full-on conversation with somebody while I'm on 300-foot roller coasters. Yeah. Like, we've done it. There's videos of us eating like a sandwich on a ride. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not like, it's almost just unfazing at this point. So when I went to Magic Mountain for the first time, I was genuinely like not even trying to be funny or whatever for the camera, like scared. Not because I was like, I'm going to get hurt or like something bad's going to happen, but like the sensation was so foreign to me that like before the ride and when I got off, I was like shaking, and that does not happen to me. And for what it's worth, I have to thank Arrow and Magic Mountain and X2 for being so fucking demented that it was able to put fear into someone who is essentially fearless when it comes to coasters. For God's sake, I got kicked off a cliff, a 650-foot cliff, and I think I was equally scared when I did X2. Like, that's how crazy this thing looks when you walk up to it. It's like, it's unbelievable.
It's a wild boy.
And again, that doesn't mean I love it, but it is insane.
If Six Flags wanted to basically print money and also just kind of rejuvenate interest in the park, I would recommend that they had on every seat on this ride, on-ride video of your face as you're on it. Because that would be, like, if I could pay and go back in time and purchase the video of me being on this ride for the first time, I would pay a large sum of money just to see what my face looked like when the seats flipped. Because
especially since that footage is so hard to recreate. You'll notice that there's not many POV videos out there.
Yeah, because the GoPro would fly off your head.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, we have a somewhat standing-ish invitation from Magic Mountain to do some on-ride filming.
Oh, nice.
Oh, my God.
Not all heroes wear capes.
You're right. Some heroes ride roller coasters that terrify them.
But how? Because it's such a crazy ride. I don't understand how any camera would survive it. That's why they'd have to do it themselves. So I guess they have some way. But
I don't know. I mean, our cameras have survived. Like, our cameras have been on like Kingda Ka, which, you know, was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world with 128 mile per hour launch. Like, I feel like
Jesus.
Yeah, that's a great adventure. That's another Six Flags park. That's the one I grew up at.
Still the tallest.
We put our cameras on a shitload of rides, and they always come back.
Although that record's going to get broken soon, right?
Probably.
That record.
Yeah.
Falcon's Flight, right?
Yeah, because everyone's going to go to that park.
Yep.
Anyways, that does it for first impressions. Let's move on to the good and the bad. But before we do that, let's thank our sponsors. Let's go into the good and the bad. What are the good and bad things about the ride? And you guys could expand on any of these, or you could even fight me on some of the bads, which we've had guests do. And I'm just going to go through a list, and we're just going to go through this rapid fire. First thing I wrote, we're starting with the good. I don't know what the fuck is going on in this ride. That's how I often feel about roller coasters, but in particular, this one I don't. It's very much the embodiment of that stupid-ass corny saying where You don't remember what people say or did to you, but you remember how they made you feel. That's basically this coaster to me. I remember how it made me feel, just like I mentioned in the first impressions. And it's still to this day, even though I recognize it's something I'm able to do, when I go up that lift hill, I'm still scared every single time. And I love that.
I agree with you.
No, it's a fantastic ride for just that very reason.
There's only 2 other coasters on planet Earth that I have ever gotten off of and been like, I don't know what the hell just happened. That is the Voyage at Holiday World and Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland, Japan. And I recommend you try both of those out because they have a similar, like, what the hell feeling.
Now, was the Voyage, was that a night ride then?
Yes.
Was it Holiday or Hollywood Nights?
Yes.
Hollywood
Nights? And that's basically when they kind of throw caution to the wind, if you will, and they just go no trim brakes halfway through the ride.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The 3 only rides on the planet I can think of that have that kind of feeling of I don't know what that layout was. I don't know what just happened. But X2 might be the highest on that list.
Yeah, it truly is insane. The suspense of this ride, and this is the next thing I wrote down. I just wrote that in all caps. Also, I love looking at the faces of people in the load zone of this ride because there are so many people where it's obvious that one person wants to go on this ride really badly and the other person was the person that was dragged onto the ride. And it's my favorite game to play in this queue, which is just like, who's the person who is the offender here? Who's trying to drag someone on here? And it's just, it's a beautiful game. And for you two, I'm guessing you're the person that Taylor, you dragged Sarah on this ride.
Look, like I wanted to go on it, like for sure, but there's a video like the first time that I went, and like someone recorded it for us, and Taylor's like all smiles, thumbs up, and I'm pretty sure I was sucking on my thumb like a child because I was freaking out so bad. And it's like if you were playing that game, you'd be like, that bitch is scared.
You got to get that credit though, right?
No, it was more than that. I don't even count credits if I'm being honest. I don't have that level, I guess, but I was like, I need to experience this no matter how terrified I am.
And we salute you for that. Taylor mentioned this earlier. Another good I wrote here is just everybody in. When you're in the queue for this ride in the load zone, there's this really goofy voiceover that comes on, and it's this guy, and he's going, is everybody in?
Is everybody in?
Yeah, and there's also, I also wrote down whispered X2. There's a lady who just whispers, X2. X2.
Like ASMR.
And then a guy, while she's doing that, says, is everybody in? Is everybody?
The ceremony's about to begin.
The ceremony is about to begin.
Is everybody in?
The ceremony is about to begin.
This
It's
sounds
so
like
good.
They should have gone Arrow full circle and just had this sponsored by not Twix but Magnum.
Yeah, exactly. Because this ride has big dick energy. But I will say that
Small whispers, BDE.
going back to Daniel Tucker, he looked like he was going to pass out in this load zone. And when the ceremony is about to begin happened, I was like, don't be mad, dude. Look, the ceremony's about to begin. And he was like, shut the fuck up. Because like we were like teenagers when this ride came on. I love this load zone. It really just builds up. Everything about this ride is about fear. And they lean into that. The queue is terrible, but the load zone area is amazing. Everything that leads up to the actual part where you are on, you're going down the drop and you're now on the roller coaster portion. They do a great job of building tension in this ride. And speaking of that, the lift hill.
It had to be you.
Fucking terrifying. It is by far the scariest lift hill I have ever been on in my entire life. You see an insane view of Six Flags, and they have amazing. I don't know who did the audio for this ride, because and most of my memories of this ride are X2, not X. And X2 is of course when they put the onboard audio on. Whoever they had do the mix for this ride, that audio engineer went full ISO mode. He called for the ball at the top of the key, and he just went into his bag. Because the shit that he mixes in here, let's just go through some of the things that play on this lift hill. The first thing you hear is, I think there's a faint heartbeat. There's a heartbeat on this. And I don't know if it's in the beginning, but it's on there in the background. There's a guy like the voiceover guy, the same guy who's talking about the ceremony about to begin, he's saying things like, "Are you ready?" And there's at one point on the lift hill where he's saying, "We're high up," which is just a dick thing to say to people when they're climbing the lift hill of a roller coaster. And in the background of that, it first starts with Harry Connick Jr.'s "It Had to Be You," which is the first thing that plays.
To be you.
Exactly.
It had to be you.
The ride takes off it dispatches from the load zone. There's like a little alarm bell that rings, and then "It Had to Be You" starts to play. It's super creepy. It's kind of like The Shining. Also, just funny because when I went on this ride for the first time, I was with somebody who was terrified, and hearing him have to listen to "It Had to Be You," hilarious. It's incredibly funny. And then after that, you start to hear random movie quotes. Like you hear Jack Nicholson from A Few Good Men saying, "You can't handle the truth." And then there's also a portion of Arlie Emmy's speech from Full Metal Jacket playing, like super random. If you had pitched this to me on paper, I would think you're out of your mind. This doesn't sound good at all. But when you're on the ride, it works, which is why I think whoever cut this together was a genius.
Except when it doesn't work.
Well, sometimes
I've never heard any of that.
Sarah, I have to tell you, if you get on this next time and the onboard audio is working, your mind is going to be blown for how suspenseful it actually is.
Maybe. Because my experience was dead silence.
That's scary, but it's not nearly as scary as the experience that they're curating here. Because after "It Had to Be You," it goes into Metallica's "Enter Sandman," which is like one of the nastiest little bass licks that you could possibly have. I love it. It's so good. I'm like literally like pumping my fists on this ride when that happens. And at the top, it then cuts to Aerosmith's "Love in an Elevator." Because at the top, if you recall, it doesn't just go straight down. There's like a little mini drop. It's like a kind of a swoop down, which tricks you. You think because when you're going up this lift hill, I'm trying to describe it in a way for the listeners here. You're going up backwards. The seats on this train, you are riding, and your back is facing towards the front of the car. So you're going up this lift hill backwards. So you don't know what's actually happening. So when you get to the top, it has this little swoop down, which if you haven't been on it, you're kind of thinking, wait, was that it? And when that happens, Aerosmith's "Love in an Elevator" starts. And then it just drops you. You just go straight down. Your seats flip. You are now falling straight down with your face facing the ground. And you fall head first 215 feet while Beastie Boys' "Sabotage" plays. And that's heard through a majority of the ride. It's incredible. An amazing song, by the way. And then the rest of the ride, the next 48 seconds, you just feel like you've been thrown from a helicopter. That's the only way I could really describe this ride. You don't know where your spatial orientation is all off. You don't know if you're flipping or if the ride vehicle is flipping or both. I've never been more confused at where I was than on this ride. It's an incredible thing. And then at the end of the ride, they also play Rage Against the Machine's "Wake Up." Which is fucking metal. I love that. It's just a great audio experience, and then you mix that with the fire, the fifth dimension, if you will. When it's working, great stuff. And yeah. And the last good I have here is, this is probably a top tier ride photo. I don't think there's a ride photo that I could think of off the top of my head that captures more genuine emotion than the X2 ride photo. Because like there's other places like Space Mountain where you're like, oh, here comes the photo, time to make a funny face. Whereas an X2, you don't know where the hell you are, so everyone's faces on this are hilarious. I actually have one of me and my friend Henry. It fully looks like he's shitting his pants. He might be. I don't know if he actually did, but his face is out of control. Do you guys have any any photos of you guys on this ride from the ride photo that?
I don't think we do, but I have a good friend Andrew who has a pretty funny one on his first ride. And so whenever I think of the on ride photo, I think of his face on this ride because it's pretty good.
Could you describe what his face looked like?
Terror, confusion, joy. I don't know. The entire
range.
Every range of emotion.
Has anybody passed away on this ride? Because I didn't look that up. I feel like if someone were to have a heart attack, it would be on this ride. this might be the last photo taken of a grandma or something is on this as last moments on Earth. Anyways, that does it for all my goods. And Sarah, you mentioned you had some goods you wanted to throw in here as well.
For me, the best part of the ride is the drop. I think that it is so creative to have a drop where you're actually looking directly down at the ground.
Terrifying.
Regular drops when they're that high are already, kind of freaky enough. But to actually be looking at the actual ground, not the track, like the ground.
Yeah.
Level fucked up. And that, for me, was my favorite part of the ride.
I really like the inversion before the second Raven turn, because I like that you are facing forwards, and then as you are inverting, your seats are also flipping you. So then you'll take the first half of the inversion forwards, and then you'll rotate, and then you'll take the second half of the inversion backwards. I think that's really cool.
Shit. That makes sense. I never thought about that.
Which sets you up brilliantly for the finale.
Which is what?
By the way, which is that final Raven turn, which I had on my goods. Essentially, it's at a point in the ride, of course, where you feel like you're out of the woods. And then they just, it's not even that huge of an element, but they whip you over the top of it with so much speed, especially if you're the last row to go over it. It just feels like someone just yanks you toward the ground. Once again, like flipping you toward, just almost like face down to finish the ride.
Yeah.
But it's set up through that, I don't know if it's is it an inline twist? Something close to that.
For going into the brake run?
Before doing the final Raven turn, the one that you talked about where you're forward facing half of it and then
profiled like a 0G roll, but nothing about it feels 0G.
No.
What's crazy is I'm hearing you guys describe this and I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna look out for that the next time I'm on this ride. And as soon as I go down that drop, I'm just gonna be like, ah! There's no fucking way
and then it's
I'm gonna be able to identify any of this. Anyone who's been on this ride is probably thinking, yeah, I'll look out for that. And there's just no way. Like my brain just turns off when I'm on this ride, which is a beautiful thing because it's sometimes a dark place to be in my mind.
One other thing that I like that I don't know if you guys are going to disagree with me, but I actually kind of like the restraints. I know they're like really bizarre, but I kind of like them. I feel very like secure in them.
That's fair.
Know.
Yeah, I think
they're not good for operations though.
On a similar note, something that I like, so you feel very secure in the top half, Sarah. You aren't talking about how secure you feel in the bottom half because you don't. No. And so what happens is X2 has a little bit of a bob to it. So as it starts rotating, it kind of rocks back and forth a little bit. And so your whole lower half kind of slaps against the fiberglass.
It's like getting spanked.
Yeah, and so your whole you'll end where your legs and your lower half will lift off the seat and be in the air and then slam back down. And like if it's so out of control, then like you have this big center piece like to keep your legs from like going on the other side of where your leg is, but like your whole body, I mean, it's ragdolling. So like you're holding on for dear life.
That's
but
why I like it.
Your lower half is going nuts.
And that could be a good or a bad, depending on how you feel about spanking. But the bad, that's a good segue into the bads, because my first bad that I wrote here, it's not actually even about that, but I just think it's a weak selling point to make this a 5D coaster. I think it's goofy. His whole coaster's like theming and like marketing is goofy. Like the queue is excruciating. They got goofy signage. They have TVs that are displaying people doing extreme sports or extreme things, like, you know, like it's like they put like a top 10 fails, like a YouTube video on the screen. It's a very strange vibe. I don't really like it. Excruciating switchbacks.
Coaster enthusiasts, we kind of ignore all the dumb Six Flags marketing because we know what the ride really is. So if you ask any coaster enthusiast, they won't call it a 5D coaster. They'll all call it a 4D coaster. And so I think for that reason, it's never really bothered us because like Six Flags has done a bunch of stupid marketing stuff before. So we just kind of like ignore it.
That's true. You accept the success of it in spite of the obvious failures of the marketing ploy.
Are you telling me that you two don't go to Hershey Park specifically for the smell of the Jolly Rancher and their boomerang?
That one actually does smell like Jolly Rancher, so I do like that. But
it does not. It smells like a fog machine.
Well, no, part of it does. It's not okay. It's better than I expected. I didn't expect it to smell like anything. I didn't expect it to work.
What flavor Jolly Rancher are we talking here, though? Green apple? We talking?
It rotates.
Oh, it rotates?
Pink, blue, or green.
Okay, I'm on board with that because I do love me some Jolly Ranchers. The last bad I have here is just I feel like it's a little too short. You know, it's so much of this ride is the lift hill. But you know, it is what it is. It's still a thrilling experience. I wish it was just a tad bit longer. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But
that's the last bad thing.
I love this roller coaster.
I love this roller coaster, and I have some things that I would consider that are bad about it. And one of the things were what you had mentioned. So that's interesting. Sarah will share her story first, and then I'll go into some of my bad.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I'm going to turn the mic over to you guys.
Yeah, so your perspective obviously is a little different because you've seen what a smooth version of X2 could feel like with Ejinaika. I have not yet. So I have now done X2 on 2 different occasions, multiple times on each occasion that I've been to the park. The first time,
we had like a whole plan where we were going to do Magic Mountain the first day, and then we were going to go to Knott's Berry Farm. And towards the very end of the day at Magic Mountain, we kind of marathoned X2, which I feel like was stupid, but we did because there was not really a line.
Amazing.
And on the last ride, I don't know what the hell happened, but I got stuck with my head with my shoulder. So like my head was totally sideways and I couldn't move it.
Wait,
yeah,
what was pinning your head though? Was it like the restraint?
No, nothing happened on the ride. Something in my neck I tweaked and I got stuck like that.
Oh my god.
It was fucking awful.
Holy
I was
shit.
like, I don't know, guys, this does not feel good. And I was like, maybe I'll sleep it off. And then the next day we went to Knott's Berry Farm and I couldn't ride a single ride because I was so injured from the day before. I literally walked around like, I'm not really in that vlog, but if you go back and watch, you can see me in the background a few times where I'm literally, I don't know if you have a visual going right now, but for anyone who's listening, my like left ear was touching my left shoulder and I couldn't move it.
Oh my god.
It sucked.
So
and
what happened?
Honestly, like, I don't know. We hit like there's potholes in that ride.
There are.
And it made my neck move in a way that it did not like. And I just got stuck like that. And I was stuck like that for like 2 or 3 days. And it was awful. Awful. It was like some of the worst pain I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, wow, does this just like happen on this ride? And everyone else there was like, no, that seems like a you thing. I'm like, shit. I don't know what happened, but it was awful. And I have since rode it again, and I did not have that happen.
Yeah.
I think maybe I was bracing too hard because people were like, you have to brace yourself. And I might have tensed too much.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like a car accident
awful.
Sometimes. Like if you're tensed up and you're expecting the car accident. This is the only car accident you would
was too ready
voluntarily
for the
get
car
on,
accident.
essentially. So I could see that if you were expecting the impact, you could be tensed up. Damn, that is...
I think that might have been what happened. I don't know, but it was awful. I couldn't... Like, the next day, I was like, I gotta have my first ride on Ghost Rider, and I was like, well, shit.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna be able to do that at all. And this is California. Like, we live on the East Coast.
Another famously smooth ride, too,
bummed.
Ghost Rider. The best ride to get on with a neck injury.
No, honestly, what would have been worse is a Ghost Rider pre-2016.
Yeah, then that would have been bad. That would have been very, very bad.
Oh, God.
And now,
no thanks.
Taylor, you had some bands as well, which I...
Yeah. So, okay. I'm glad that you mentioned potholes because that is definitely one of the first critiques that comes to my mind is there are some obvious spots on X2 where it is significantly more uncomfortable than others, mainly being the bottom of the second Raven dive. And I would even go as far as saying it is even more uncomfortable on the left side. So if you're looking at the station, like facing frontward, the right side, I've found to be more pleasant than the left side because of this one maneuver. It's like everyone knows to brace for the second Raven dive.
But don't do it too hard or
yeah,
you're going to end up like me.
Yeah, so like that pothole is not fun at all. The rest of the ride is fine. It's mainly just that one element. So I would actually go as far as saying that that's the one moment of the ride that I don't really look forward to because of that. I would also say the middle of this ride has some dead space. So after the quote airtime hill, which is actually a really cool element because it's not really an airtime hill because you flip while the track does not
but it's profiled
invert.
like one.
Yeah, and so it's profiled to look like a normal airtime hill, but it's not. So that moment is great. But then you do this fan turn, which is the furthest point of the ride, kind of near the station. Like when you're walking up to the station, this is that view you get of the turn going over the lift. This moment is so drawn out that it doesn't keep the same pace that the rest of the ride has.
I would agree.
And I felt like the biggest problem with it is that it is too wide. I think if it were tighter, then it would not have the same issue. And point proven with the 2 follow-up coasters from S&S, they have made some changes to it. And one of those changes is that turn does not exist there. Instead, they have the turn go the other direction, so it wraps around the station to the other side. And that way it keeps the same pace because it's more of a true overbank. And so I really like what they did there. So that was a definite thing that I miss about those coasters like overseas compared to this one.
Another thing that I think is definitely a con from an operational standpoint, it's not great.
No, it is not.
One of the reasons that the line is so long all the time is because dispatches are long on X2, like very, very long. Like I've timed them and they've sometimes been upwards of like 7 minutes. And that, yeah. So one, they don't have a single rider line and it's only, seats 2 people in each spot.
They easily could have one.
They easily could have one to fill all those empty spots. That would definitely make operations much quicker. Also, I did mention that I like the restraints as a rider, but they are time consuming as an operator to get everybody strapped in and checked and everything. And that can also delay dispatches. And they also can't really run a ton of trains on that thing also.
When you have a ride that ragdolls you, they really got to strap you in there.
Yeah, it's like putting on a vest.
Yeah. Yeah, so the way it works is there's 3 things that the operators have to do for each rider. So first you have to push down so that it is an accurate height to
your shoulders,
however tall you are. And then you have to pull it in to each side, and then you have to buckle the seatbelt. So,
and that's hard for some people to figure it out.
It's a process, but I will say to what Sarah is saying, it does improve the experience as a rider because you really feel secure. But also, the more buckles they strap to you, the more you're thinking, what the hell am I about to ride that needs this?
It's like a straitjacket.
That necessitates
but only for the top half.
This much restraints. Like, you only get strapped up that much if you're about to go onto something that is quite dangerous. And I think that only adds to the fear factor.
And to piggyback off that, the scariest part of the ride for me now is every time I'm on the chain lift, I feel like it's like kind of tight on you, the restraints. And my biggest fear now is if this thing breaks down and I'm stuck in these restraints. These are like the least ideal restraints to be stuck in.
Oh, I can't think of a ride that would be worse to have the restraints let you go than X2. Could you imagine if you were on that face down drop and the restraints came loose and you just go crashing into the earth head first? And we are back. It is time for the world-class tests. This is a rubric of 10 tests painstakingly devised by Byron and myself to determine if an attraction is world-class. To receive the highly coveted world-class pass, the attraction must pass 7 out of 10 tests. A score of 6 out of 10 leaves the attraction up for debate, and we could debate it into world-class standing. And anything lower than 6 out of 10 is an automatic fail. And how this is going to work, since there are 4 of us, majority rules. So if 3 of us pass it, it passes. If there's a tie, we'll give it a 0.5. We really thought this through. Let's just start with the first test. The average tourist test. Would the average tourist have a hard time getting on this ride? Is there a long wait? Is there a complicated queue system?
I would say yes.
I would say yes.
I got a feeling I'm going to be defending X2's honor today. I think I want to say no, just because if you go to Six Flags on like a holiday, sure, but if you go to Six Flags like pretty much any other day, even some weekend days, you could get on this thing pretty easily. However, if you do catch it on one of those busy days, good luck.
Good luck.
I'm gonna go. Well, this is tough. This is really tough. Well, because first off, it's the first ride you see.
Yes,
you
everyone
drive
wants
into
to
the
get on
parking
it.
lot.
Yeah.
It dominates the skyline when you're riding into the park. As a matter of fact, since it was in such close proximity to Viper, that's one of the reasons why Six Flags was really jonesing to have this thing be 200 feet tall, because they wanted it to look much bigger than Viper.
They probably also wanted it to cover Viper because that ride sucks. Just hide that ride. Hide it in the park.
I just think for your average tourist, you know it exists. It is at the front of the park. It doesn't do any favors that, like, although it is at the front of the park, you have to kind of like curl back a long ways.
That's true.
And then in addition to this, like, you're in the line at this point already, but in terms of the station loading, that queue, they do a really bad job of letting guests know that you could board on each side of the station. So you'll get like a massive line that'll go up like one staircase, and there'll be no signs or no employees or anything saying, oh, like if you just walk over to this side and go up this set of stairs, there's no one over here.
So not overly user friendly.
It's not. I do like.
I could see a fail,
and
honestly.
it does experience.
I'm starting to come to earth here.
It experiences a lot of downtime. At least when I go to Six Flags, it never is open with the park. I know because I always end up going later in the day.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like one of the first things that if it was open, so it never opens with the park. So if you are an average tourist and that's the first ride you see and it's not opening with the park, you're like, oh, it's down for the day. And you move on to the other 19 roller coasters that they have. So I think I will have to go with a fail.
Well, I was going to defend its honor, and I was even going to bring up the fact that there's a Panda Express right outside of it, so you could have some delicious orange chicken while you wait in line. However, I just remembered they replaced that with, I think, chopsticks or something like that. So,
Chopsticks.
Pickup sticks.
Baby.
Or pickup sticks. Pickup sticks.
Is it pickup sticks or is it something more generic?
It's something more generic.
It's chopsticks.
Chopsticks.
Oh, it is chopsticks. Nice. Yeah, well, you can't...
No, chopsticks.
Like Six Flags, chopsticks.
Oh my God, that's even worse.
That's a Six Flags.
Yeah, so
move.
then you know what? By that metric alone, I might have to fail it.
I think it's a fail. Are we all saying fail?
I
think
love
it's
how the fast food played a role.
It did, because if I'm going to wait in a 2-hour line, but it could be kind of softened by the, just the delicious bowl of orange chicken that I have, then I'm not going to really even think about it that much. I might not even be upset about the shitty queue, but I have to say, it's got to be a fail. Damn.
I see your point.
All right. That's 0 for 1. Moving on to test number 2, the Leslie Stahl test. Would you be willing to wait 60 minutes for this attraction if you've already been on it at least once?
Yes.
Even though I have said my negative piece about it, it is on the other side of the country. I don't get to go often. And while I do find it to be not very re-rideable, one ride on it, I think is very much something I would not want to leave Magic Mountain without. So I'm going to say yes.
I think if you are going to Six Flags and you do not get on this ride, you are doing yourself a major disservice in the fact, just from the standpoint of there's only like 2 other rides in the world that are like it. This is one of the few places in the entire world that you could get on a ride like this. I think from that metric alone, you need to be waiting no matter what it is. Even if it's a 2-hour wait, I would wait 2 hours for this ride. So I actually feel very strongly that this is a pass.
Easy pass for me. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
It's rarely under 60 minutes, I feel like. Average wait times for if you're 60 minutes or less, I think, or even a little more, I think, if you don't go to Six Flags that often, yeah, definitely waiting that hour.
You got to get on this ride. Then you got to go on Tatsu and have your chest crushed by that pretzel loop. Feels like an elephant is taking a shit on your chest. Anyways, test number 3, the smartphone test. Does the queue of this ride have enough to keep you off of your phone?
No.
Nope.
Are these all going to be unanimous yeses and nos? Because there's no fucking way that this queue is going to pass.
The only way this would pass the test is if it is a walk-on and your phone is getting thrown in that locker.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bad queue. I mean, but then again, all Six Flags queues, for the most part, there are a couple that are well themed. Like Superman is got some cool. You're in the Fortress of Solitude. That's nice.
This is a test that I don't feel like many rides at Six Flags or Cedar Fair parks are going to pass.
No, but there are a couple that will. But I have to say this is clearly a fail. So moving on. Test number 4, the Tony Stark test. How innovative is this attraction? Does it push theme park tech forward?
I would say it's extremely innovative. Yes.
I would say absolutely yes.
Yeah, it was the prototype. It's the first of its kind. It's the first 4D roller coaster in the world. So yeah, I think clearly this pushed theme park tech forward into the monstrosity that it's become over there in Japan. I haven't been on it, but that ride sounds like you have a death wish. And I'm going to have to get on it one day, and I'm going to be fucking scared as hell. But yes, this is a pass.
The only way I could see you arguing against it is there are only 3 in the whole world, whereas a lot of other types of roller coasters have been replicated tons of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I still think, regardless of the fact that it hasn't been done multiple times, it is so out of this world creative. I am an Alan Schulke lover for sure. And I think that is some of his most creative work, regardless of how I feel about how it rides.
Do you think it spearheaded the development of the SNS spearheads? Do you think the the SNS free spins, sorry. Do you think those exist without X?
I think that is exactly why they made the free spin.
I was going to make that same
You
point.
want a
I was
smaller,
gonna
more
correct
affordable version.
I have to say, I also think regardless if there's only two other coasters that are like this, it pushed forward the idea of how crazy you could get with a roller coaster and get away with it. So I think just from that standpoint alone, it opened up the world to some more sickos.
And this opened during a period of time, like we mentioned earlier with the coaster wars, where it was always about like, what's the tallest and the fastest? And I think the ingenuity that went into developing this ride might have gotten coaster designers in the early 2000s to think, look, we can make like incredible roller coasters that don't have to be over 300 feet tall. They could just do new, like if we could create new and inventive maneuvers and think outside the box.
It put the rest of the world on notice for sure. Okay, so that's a pass. That's a clear pass. That's 2 for 4. So we're not doing bad here. Test number 5, the Hollywood test. Can this attraction be adapted for the silver screen? Does it have a comprehensible story?
I'm working on the script right now.
No.
I would say yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
it literally made a... Wait, I would say yes, because like if you were to make a story about are you talking about like the
ride
creation
itself?
Of the ride?
The ride itself,
ride
like the actual ride experience. Because like, you get on, that's why this is interesting when you put it through a coaster. But you can make
That's an interesting one.
You can make a movie about the creation of the ride, but you couldn't make a movie about the ride itself. There's no way. I think this one by default has to be a fail. But hey, that's just the circumstance. Like if you did, Velocicoaster, I guess you can make a movie about that. Yeah, But yeah, this is a fail.
That's an interesting one.
It's that one is a fail. All right, 2 for 5. Oh man, this one's tough too. Test number 6, the Simpson test. How likely is this ride to be replaced by something new? Much like Back to the Future was replaced by The Simpsons. I don't see them ever replacing this ride as long as the park is open.
I think as long as they can afford to upkeep it, it'll be there.
Yeah.
I think it would take something crazy to get them to take this down. Like something would have to legitimately happen.
Like
that
unfixable.
That is too financially, that would just like cost them like a stupid amount of money to fix, that they would have to take it out. Like I think this thing is in here for the long haul.
Or
Too
those
iconic
restraints
to
open.
that entire area.
If the restraints open and you swan dived headfirst into the cement, that probably would close it. But
that is not close certain roller
might do it.
coasters, but
no, I don't think this ride. Frankly, Six Flags can't afford to replace it. So
I mean,
I don't think that they ever would replace it.
I think the closest this coaster would have gotten to getting replaced was back in 2007, and instead they decided to put the money into putting lighter vehicles on to ensure that the structural integrity stayed intact. And yeah, I don't see it being replaced.
Yeah, maybe we'll see an X3. They'll improve it even more.
Honestly, I think it's kind of like Dragster, how Dragsters with Cedar Point, that like even though it had an accident, it was very unreliable. They were like, this ride is too iconic and central to our identity as a park that like we will do anything in our power to keep it there in some way. So like while they are changing it and adding like the spike and new trains and new launch system, like it is still the spirit of the ride intact. And I think that'll always be the case with X or X2 or X 5 million, whatever we get to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree.
It's Six Flags isn't about all like IPs and stuff like a Disney Universal Park where like a popular movie comes out or something and then they have to make room for it.
They did make that shitty Terminator Salvation ride though, if you recall.
Oh yeah. But even technically,
Hey, when that thing's retract, it's great. Problem is that very.
I hit a nerve.
that ride still exists though. They just took the Terminator Salvation. It's Apocalypse now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. All right. Well, let's pass this because it's there's no way it's going to be replaced. Moving on to test number 7, we're at 3 for 6. The signature moment test. This is going to be interesting. Can this ride hold its own without its signature moment? Is it a one-trick pony? I would say the signature moment of this ride is the flip that you do when you're going, the flip to put you face down as you go down the drop, and then that first time you somersault in your chair. Is the rest of the ride, does it ever reach that height again?
I don't know. That's tough because to me, like when you say a one-trick pony, I think of like a dive coaster, right?
Yeah.
Where it's literally that moment, and then the rest of the coaster is whatever. To me, the signature moment, like you said, is like the drop in that first flip, or just the flipping motion in general. I don't know how good the ride would be if it didn't flip like that.
But you still have a huge drop, and like some inversions of. I say it still holds up. Yes.
I would say it still holds up, even if it didn't do the flipping.
Even if you remove the entire first drop with that flip, then what? You'd start with a massive Raven turn. You'd have a backwards flip over the airtime hill. You'd have that, I guess what, like a 0G roll with that flip that sends
and you have
backward.
the fireball.
And then you get the finale with that final Raven turn. You're just hit with so many elements throughout the entire course of the ride that I can't see this being a one-trick pony.
Yeah, like I don't think it's fair to say that you remove that drop, it doesn't mean you can't flip in the seats the rest of the ride. I think the rest of the ride is so genuinely thrilling that it's hard for me to even parse it.
Yeah, and I know this because it's not like when you go through that first drop, you're not like, whoo, all right, we did it. It's all right, now we're just coasting. Like, for example, like Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm, awesome first launch, awesome drop, and then you're kind of just coasting and having a great time, and you're like, I'm through the woods. Now it's like, it feels like you're doing a victory lap. X2, it's like, oh no, we still got a lot of stuff coming down.
Well, picture it with a launch. That's a good way to think about it. Picture it with a launch instead of a big first drop. Would it still be good if it launched into that Raving turn instead? I think it'd still be good.
I think it would. I think it would. And I also, to be honest, whenever I'm on this ride, once the drop happens, I black out until I'm back into the loading zone. So I think the fact that I'm not able to even decipher parts of the ride just because I'm so thrilled, I think by that virtue alone, it is just a thrilling ride from beginning to end, and it should pass this ride. So it's gonna be a pass for me. Seems like it's a pass for you.
Yeah, even if the seats did not rotate, the roller coaster just on its elements alone would be terrific.
Well, we're going into the last 4 out of 7. We have 3 more tests to get this guy to world-class status, or we could debate it in with 6. But before we get to the last 3 tests, let's have another word from our sponsors. And we are back. It is time for the last 3 tests. Let's see how high we could get this baby to go, and let's see if we could get it that world-class pass. Test number 8, the premature detraculation test. Does this ride finish too soon? Now.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's fine. I know you said you thought it was a little short. I think it's fine.
I've never had a problem with the duration.
So I'm passing it. No premature detraculation, whatever you called it.
So this is the same prime ride time, just about. I think it's like 48 or 50 seconds or so. Very similar to the new Tron light cycle run at Magic Kingdom, which gets a lot of flack for being a short duration. However, X2 is a different ball game. I don't think you want this thing longer.
I could use a little longer. I could use a little longer. I could use a little longer.
What they pack into the 50 seconds is insane. I'm going with the pass.
However, I will say that given that the lift hill section is honestly, the fact that they made the lift hill section one of my favorite parts of this ride is, I got to give the kudos to Six Flags for making this, especially when they have the onboard audio. They make that into an actual experience, which you can't say for a lot of other coasters that just, they just use the virtue of you're going up very high on this lift hill to scare you. Whereas this, it actually is a story that they're telling. And I think by that virtue, I would pass it because it is a 2-minute ride, essentially. I just wish the coaster portion was a little longer, but...
Yeah, that's true.
I don't.
You're scared shitless when you're going up the lift hill the entire time. So you are getting thrilled even before you disengage from the lift hill.
That's fair.
You get this beautiful view of the park. You're facing the entire park out in front of you.
I agree with you.
I'm just layering
calm down.
Points.
His face is getting red. He's going to take a breath. All right, let's pass that one. Now we're at 5 for 7. Oh man, we're almost there. Okay. Oh, this is for sure going to be a pass. All right, test number 9, the exit hall test. Do you see people be physically excited getting off of this ride? Do they have that bounce in their step when they're walking through the exit hall? I mean,
100%.
I can't think of another ride that has a better people being more excited than this ride when they get off of it. People are howling when they get off of this thing. I've seen people high-five each other in the exit hall, or people are throwing up, which is really funny to me.
I was going to say, I was very excited to get off of that ride. but for a very different reason. No, but even so, like, even if you're like, ow, that kind of hurt, you're like, holy shit, that was awesome. So I'm passing it for sure.
There's no way this doesn't pass.
Sounds like an easy pass.
That's 6 for 8. Or no, 6 for 9. No, wait. Yeah, 6 for 9. Oh my God.
So we are in debate land already.
We already could debate it into being a world-class attraction, but we have the last test here. This is going to be very interesting. This is the fine wine test. Has this ride aged well? Has your opinion of the attraction appreciated or depreciated since your first experience? Or if it's a new ride, do you believe it will age well? Now, we have to be honest here.
Yeah, your situation is interesting because you legitimately agreed that you did not like it at first. So in a sense, it has gone up, but like that's like kind of like a tough one because it has been around for a long time, and the park does take as good of care of it as they can within like their means, I think. But like we said, it has like a lot of potholes and it's not the most comfortable, but was it ever the most comfortable? That's the thing.
Yeah, I never rode it back when it first opened, so I have no idea like how it rode at first. I mean, I like to think that the new trains helped it. So if we're comparing it to like when it opened as X, I would say that this is the superior version. Like, so if that's what we're talking about, then I would say yes.
But how is it aged in your mind? Like, as if you recall it since the last time you rode it, are you thinking still?
I like it more.
Then yeah, I would say then for sure it's aged. For me, I can't wait to get on this ride once I get off of it. I'm looking forward to the next time I'm going to get on it. Even as we talk about it now, I'm incredibly stoked to go back to Six Flags and get on this thing. So I don't think it's aged at all in my mind poorly, in my opinion.
For me, it's weird.
Yeah, because it's weird for me because I almost broke my neck on it. So it's a little tough.
Yeah. Like I have a weird borderline toxic relationship with this ride because it's like a bad relationship I keep going back to. Like I get all excited about riding it again, and then I get off and I'm like, fuck, ow. Like, what the hell am I doing? But then I leave and then I'm like, oh man, I'm excited to do X2 again. And it's like, I don't know. Like I said, it's like a weirdly abusive relationship I have with X2. But like, I think the fact that I always get excited to do it again speaks volumes. Like, I say that I'm not a huge fan. I wouldn't put it in my top whatever, but like I very much acknowledge how cool it is. And then I'm like, ooh, I never get to do anything like that. Like there's nothing like that anywhere else that I have been to. So I definitely get excited for it until I do it. And then I'm like, oh, fuck. But so I would say like a weird neutral, but sort of yes. Ish.
And well, I'm gonna count that as a pass, just for the record, because if that's the case, we already got the 3 votes we need. But Byron,
well,
careful now.
That's the thing is, compared to my first ride experience on this, I do feel like if anything, it has gotten smoother because I had been on it with the heavier trains the first time. And then I think the biggest thing here for me is when this ride first came out, I was kind of under the impression that, parks across the US are going to get more of these. And now we're over 20 years since it first opened, and no other parks in North America have gotten this. So it's kind of hard for me to say that my appreciation hasn't grown for it. Cause like basically as time has gone on, it's the only thing here. And
it's not like Rise of the Resistance where now there's a bunch of trackless ride vehicles. It's
one
of those things where it's so insane that no one even is crazy enough to attempt it.
Yeah.
In North America,
I think
at
it's
least.
the cost.
And we've reached a point.
I'm pretty sure it's the cost.
Yeah. Now we've reached a point where I don't know if we ever will get it. Another one of these in North America. So I think with that, I go with a pass. And I also just like, once again, like the effects and stuff don't always work and stuff now. That's not why I'm going on this ride.
No, that's true. Well, if that's the case, that is 7 out of 10. That is the end of the rubric, and that seals it. This is a world-class attraction, which is funny because Sarah earlier said you can't have a ride that injures you and call it a world-class attraction. However...
Well, that wasn't on your rubric, now was it?
No, I don't have a test where it says, does this ride send you to the hospital? And I...
No, you need to add this... I need the Sarah Anderson test. Do you need a guide to ride it comfortably? Because if that was a question,
That's the tour guide effect.
yes. Like, do you have someone feeding you knowledge on how to not get fucking hurt?
I will say, though, I have been on this ride numerous times, and I never knew any of the things about the inside outside. I just get on this ride, and I'm ready to party. And I've never really gotten...
You must just have a high pain tolerance.
No, or maybe I'm just impervious to injury. But I have to say, though, that can't be true.
Does the ride try to kill you?
Because the Viper tries to kill you, but this ride is fine. I've never experienced like needing to tell somebody, okay, you need to brace yourself here. It's just hang on, have a good time.
Must be nice on that inside seat, right?
Hey, look, man, I've been on the outside too. But that's that. It is a world-class attraction. Congratulations to X2. There's only one of them in North America. It truly is worldly in that sense that there's only 3 in the world. So I think this is an appropriate level. 7 out of 10 feels kind of right to me, a 70% score. That does it for this episode, though. I just want to thank you guys for coming on. Thank you guys, Coaster Studios. Is there anything that you would like to plug for our audience before we get out of here?
I mean, the main thing for us is our YouTube channel. I mean, whether you are a light enjoyer of roller coasters and theme parks or a diehard enthusiast, there is something on our channel that will interest and or entertain you. Like, for sure. Like, we have such a variety of different types of content, and I think that anyone really can enjoy it. Definitely the RMC documentary, This Is How We Roll, on vimeo.com/ondemand/This We Roll movie. We talked about Alan Schulke and how he was the designer of X2. He also is heavily featured in that documentary.
I went skiing with him.
Yeah. Okay.
What?
Yeah, and dirt bike ride.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
You can see that in the film.
That's incredible. I'm gonna have to check that
Yeah,
out.
we gotta fire that up.
I also got to say, too, that
That'd be
your
great.
guys' reviews of roller coasters are the most, like you said, they bring it down to so that it's easy to digest for someone who isn't a coaster fanatic like myself. And you still go in depth of what the maneuvers are, but your ability to show that with the footage and describe the sensation makes it digestible for someone like me. So I highly recommend those as well. But yeah, once again, thank you guys for coming and for sharing your expertise on this ride. This was fun.
Thank you for having us. We had so much fun.
Of course. And for those of you guys who are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. It helps us keep this series alive. And if for those of you who are listening, make sure you subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars. And if you don't want to rate it, then don't rate it at all. Just forget I said that. But that does help us keep this podcast alive. And you can follow us at FYA Pod, myself at Ryan S. Bergara on Twix, and at Ryan Bergara on Instagram, and Byron's at Byron A. Marin on all aforementioned social media platforms. Also, do you guys have a social that you guys would like to plug as well right here?
We have Instagram, so we're like at Coaster_Studios because some bastard took regular at Coaster Studios. We don't know who he is.
Oh, that's just like there's one other Ryan Bergara in the world, and that's why I have 2 different names. He lives in the Philippines, and he took at Ryan Bergara on Twitter, and one day I will kill him. But
I would say, let's go kill him.
I keep saying I've threatened this man's life now probably 50 times.
Almost every episode ends with this Ryan Bergara getting threatened.
He's going to die one day.
He's going to file a restraining order.
And it's going to be at the hand of my sword. Anyways, that does it for this episode. See you all later.